So, guys, what's going on? This is Brad from the Ed Army, and today we are going to be going over Sakuyamon in this basic breakdown. It's time to look at another deck getting support out of EXA. But before I get into it, as always, I have one little request of you, and that is simply to like and subscribe. We are on the acceleration with your guys' help to 500 subscribers, and I would love for you to be on the road with us as we are on that route. But getting into basic breakdown today, we are covering Sakuyamon being the premier and only female based Digimon partner in the Digimon Tamers anime. The main focus we're doing with Sakuyamon is that we are going to be going over the archetype as a whole. And like I said, if this is your first time being a part of Basic Breakdown and watching, I go over almost all the cards or every card available to most decks as long as they are going to be somewhat usable to you and you get to enjoy that. So we're going to be getting into it as there are a lot of cards coming out for Sakuyamon in terms of support, but more importantly, there's a lot of cards for this archetype. So this is a long one. So I do ask you to buckle up, sit down, relax, play it in the background as I discuss to you what we are doing. So we're going to go over the card breakthrough of what's available to Sakuyamon. Starting off, we have 2 eggs currently. And what I mean is we have Viximon from EX2, and then we will be receiving BT19's Viximon, which will be coming in Special Booster 2.5. But getting into what we have for Viximon, starting off with the one from EX2, if you use a 2-cost option or more, you get to draw 1 card for its inheritable, and then for the Viximon from BT19, at the end of your turn, you get to add back a plugin option that is in your trash to your hand. So very cool, and they are the only eggs available for the archetype now. However, you can splash others, but these are the premier ones as this is breaking down all the cards you have available. Moving into the level 3s, interestingly enough, we have a lot of Renamons, but the more important factor is we go all the way to the beginning at BT5, where we can receive the first Renamon. Now, the first Renamon, interestingly enough, is a on-play effect and a cost 4 to play, and simply just allows you to give security attack -1 on one of your opponent's Digimon. Nothing really too crazy there, but that is a still useful effect for early Digimon. Moving into EX2, where this archetype was really starting to move and archetypes were starting to become more of a thing, post, I think, EX1, we have the Renamon from EX2, which allows you to search all of the archetype from Renamon, Cubimon, Sakuyamon, and Taomon, and additionally allows you to grab a Rika Nonaka, which is the Tamer, and then for its inheritable, when you use a 2-cost option, you get to gain a memory. So very solid. We would move into EX4, where we find the next Renamon here, which is the dual color Renamon, which for a card play cost of 4, but more importantly, can digivolve on top of blue or yellow eggs for a cost of 1. The main thing you want to focus on here is it does have a special evolution condition to digivolve on top of specifically Viximon for 0, and then when it's on play, it gets to stun 2 4K or less Digimon for the turn, so they can't attack. But more importantly than that, what it allows you to do is that when you use a 2-cost option, you get to gain a memory, so very similar to EX2's, and allows you to understand the options are a very important aspect of the deck. Moving into the next Renamon, it would take a while, but we have the one from BT10. The one from BT10 or Cross Encounter is a rather unique one, so on play it lets you add a plugin and a plugin option, and additionally a yellow Tamer, so non-specific on the yellow Tamer you can add. More importantly, for its inheritable, when you use a 2-cost or more option, you get to subtract 2000 DP on your opponent's Digimon. Very solid for an effect. When we move all the way to BT17, where we find the next Renamon, this one is arguably, I think, the best one in terms of the modern game, where for its on play, you get to add any of the archetype Digimon that I've mentioned before, and you get to add either Rika or you get to add a 2-cost option to your hand. So very solid and very good to search a lot of good cards. Additionally, for its inheritable, when you use a 2-cost option, you get to put security attack -1 on one of your opponent's Digimon. So very solid. And then finally, we'll talk about the BT19 one before we talk about one little special Renamon. We have a really interesting effect where at the start of your main phase, if you have Rika or a Kalumon in play, you get to gain memory, and then additionally for its inheritable, you get to minus 2000 DP when you use a 2-cost option or more. So very solid in keeping a theme. Moving into the Renamon X, which will be coming out in EX8. I want to talk about this one separately because it's a little bit different than the others. Where on play or when digivolving, you get to return 1 option card with plugin in its name from your trash to the hand. During your turn, once per turn, when you use an option with a use cost of 2 or more, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 2000 DP for the turn. So obviously for that inheritable, you're just stacking more. So pretty much those are all the Renamon. We'll move into the Cubimons next, as the Cubimons start exactly like the Renamons in BT5, where the first Renamon first Cubimon here allows you to simply just give minus 1000 to all of your opponent's security Digimon, something that we don't really see much anymore. But moving into the EX2 Cubimon, you get to reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you get to add 1 plugin option from its when Digivolving effect, and for its inheritable, it does minus 2000 when you use a 2-cost option or more. Moving to the BT10 Cubimon, I like this one because when Digivolving, you get to activate one of its specific effects. So you can either return 1 plugin option from your trash to the hand, or you get to trash a plugin option from your hand and draw 2 cards, allowing you to filter through. Moving into the next ones, we have the EX4 Yokomon, which is always treated as Cubimon, so keep that in mind. It additionally has an on-play when Digivolving to give any one of your Digimon blocker, and when it's used as a heritable, it has minus 2000 when you use a 2-cost option or more. Additionally, it is a dual color blue-yellow, so keep that in mind, and it has a special evolution condition to Digivolve on Renamon for a cost of 2. So very, very solid. Moving into the next wave of the Cubimons, we actually have the BT17 one, which I think is very good, where if you do not have Rika in play, you simply play a Rika, and more importantly, for its inheritable, you get to security attack -1 when you use an option, so very straightforward. In conjunction with the one at a BT19, these Cubimon I think will make the deck a lot better, where if you have 1 or less Tamers, you get to play 1 Rika from your hand, and then additionally for the inheritable, you get minus 2000 when you use a 2-cost option. So very solid. Moving into the Taumons, as the Taumons very similarly match up with this archetype really interestingly, starting off with the Taumon from BT5, just a minus 1000 on opponent's security. Like I said, not very as much useful. But moving into the EX2 Taumon, now this one's interesting because when you Digivolve, you get to play a Rika. So no matter what condition or how many you have, as long as you have this Taumon, you can always play Rika out. Additionally, for its inheritable, you minus 2000 when you use a 2-cost option or more. So very solid. Moving into the Taumon, specifically from BT10, this one allows you to, when Digivolving, use a plugin option, and you ignore the color and cost. So you simply can use any of the plugins, no matter the color, and you get to ignore how much it costs to use it. So very solid, and Taumon's very good for that one. Moving into the next one, we actually have Doumon, which is always treated as Taumon, so always keep that in mind. Additionally, for its on-play and when Digivolving effect, it allows you to bounce one of your opponent's 6000 DP or less Digimon, and then for its inheritable, you get minus 2000 when you use a 2-cost option or more. So very solid, and also very important when you see another card in the back. When we look at the BT17 Taumon, which is the most recent in terms of our release at the moment, we have a very interesting one where it carries Barrier as its first skill, and then when it Digivolves, it allows you to use 1 yellow option or a plugin with the cost reduced by 2. And then for its inheritable, if this Digimon is Sakuyamon, you get to use 1 yellow option or plugin. You reduce its cost by 2. So very cool to add on to the obvious Digi-Evolution line to Sakuyamon. And then finally, I would be remiss if I did not talk about the BT19 Taumon Ace, which will revolutionize the deck when we get 2.5, where on play and when Digivolving, you get to use one of its different effects. The effect you want to focus is the Your Turn effect, where you get to use 1 single color 5-cost or less option. If it's your opponent's turn, you get to give them 1 security attack -1, and then you get to stun their Digimon from using when Digivolving effects until the end of their turn, so it's very cool. And then finally, for its inheritable, because it does carry an inheritable, when attacking, you give minus 4k DP to your opponent's Digimon, so very solid. Now let's move into the Sakuyamons, because we've actually come a very long way, as a lot of the Sakuyamons have different effects. Starting off with the first one out of BT5, this one, during your opponent's turn, if they move opposing Digimon from the battle area, or to the battle area from the breeding area, you get to give that Digimon security attack -3. And then during your turn, all of your opponent's security Digimon get minus 3000, allowing you to check the security a bit easier. Moving to EX2s, this one's interesting because when you Digivolve, you get to unsuspend one of your Digimon, and then for each Tamer you get to add 1 plugin option from your trash to your hand. Additionally, during your turn, if you use a 2-cost option, you get to do minus 3000 on your opponent's Digimon, getting you there a little bit quicker. Moving all the way to the EX4, technically Kazuhamon, which is always treated as Sakuyamon. when it digivolves, the first thing you do is you get to use a 5 cost or less option without paying the cost. And then when you use an option or a cost 2 or more option, actually, you get to play out one Talmon specifically or a level 4 or lower blue or yellow Digimon from its sources. So obviously you could tell Kazuhamon is an integral part of the deck. Moving into two of our other Sakuyamons, these ones are very interesting. Looking at Sakuyamon from specifically BT17, this one carries Barrier as innate skill. It can also minus 6,000 DP and it allows you to use one plugin or yellow option, additionally without paying the cost. And then if you use an option, this Digimon can't be returned by opponent's effects until the end of the next turn. So it does protect itself if you use an option. So very powerful. Additionally, when we look at the BT19 Sakuyamon, which it will be coming out in 2.5, this one's really good because when Digivolving, you get to draw 2 cards. And then you get to use a 5 cost single color option. So that's really cool to use because you just simply play it out. And then additionally, for it's heritable, when you use an option with the cost of 2 or more, it allows you to play out a token that carries blocker. So very important. However, when this is combined with our next card, you understand the combo is a bit stronger as we get to look at Sakuyamon X. As believe it or not, Sakuyamon X will be here before we get the BT19 support. The reason I keep mentioning that is the EX or the X antibody support was, I think, intended to be used with the BT19 support, but because of how we're getting it here in the West, you unfortunately have it the other way around. But this card is still good, where I can Digivolve on top of any level 6 with Sakuyamon in its name, with or without the X antibody, for a cost of 1. Then when Digivolving, if Sakuyamon or X antibody is in this Digimon's Digi-Evolution cards, you get to play one Uka no Mitama token. That is a Digimon that happens to be yellow with 9,000 DP and has Rush. And then during your turn, once per turn, when one of your Digimon attacks, you may use one single color option card with a cost use of 5 or less from your hand without paying the cost. If this effect used, one of your Digimon unsuspend. Transitioning over to the other Sakuyamons, we have form changes as we first look at Sakuyamon main mode. This one is from BT10, where when Digivolving, you may use one option card with plugin in its name, or that's a yellow. It has a memory cost of 5 or less from your hand without meeting its color requirements or paying its cost. Then you place the option card used with this effect on top of your security stack face down instead of placing it in your trash. Additionally, for its effect, when attacking, this Digimon may Digivolve into a Sakuyamon in your hand for a cost of 1 and ignoring its Digi-Evolution requirements. So very stellar. There's also going to Digivolve on top of level 6s for a cost of 2 if they're yellow, and then level 5s for a standard cost of 3. So very cool. Looking at the Sakuyamon Maid Mode Ace or Miko Mode Ace, this one is interesting. I talked about it in another video, but importantly, what you have here is it can Digivolve on top of Sakuyamon for cost of 1. It can blast Digivolve, and then on play when Digivolving, you may place one yellow Tamer card or one single color use cost 5 or lower option card from your hand at the top of your security. And then during all turns, once per turn, when an option card are used or security stacks are added to, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 6,000 DP for the turn, and it carries the overflow of -4. So very solid. Moving into our Tamers, because we only have 3 at the moment, we have 3 Rika no Nakas, focusing on the first one from EX2. This one's a memory setter, and then on attack, it allows you to use a plug-in option. Additionally, for the BT17 Rika, this one at the start of your main phase allows you to gain 1 memory if your opponent has a Digimon, and then more importantly, it allows you to warp Digivolve by stacking a Renamon, a Sakuya, or Renamon, Talmon, and a Cubimon underneath it to warp Digivolve into Sakuyamon. Very cool. And the BT19 one will be important for consistency as on play. It allows you to search for any of the archetype Digimon or a plugin option. And then when you use an option card, you get to suspend her to gain 1 memory. So very solid. We're going to move into the options quick because this is actually a part of the deck that's integral, but you'll understand in a minute why you could choose to go without them, as we have the plugin options. Now, I'm specifically only going to be focusing on plugin S and plugin Q. I have plugin P, but it's not necessarily the best, but it's still something you can use. Now, the reason that we have them here is that they are searchable in the archetype. They do have some purpose, but specifically for plugin Q, I have the recharge one because it does allow you to protect your Digimon by when they would be deleted. You just place this into your security instead. So it does allow you to protect your Digimon and gives you a security technically, so it's not bad. But for Digi-Evolution Plugin S, this one is extremely important because it is the main turbo enabler in the deck. What it allows you to do is for 2 cost, you can draw 1 card, and then one of your Digimon Digivolves into a Digimon with a Digi-Evolution cost of 3 or lower, and it reduces it for free. So you basically Digivolve anything for 3 cost for 2 specifically with the cost of the option, and that's about it. And additionally, it can ignore color requirements when you have a Tamer. The main reason you use it is it's searchable, and it lets you Digivolve, it lets you draw a card. So pretty much this is a mandatory in terms of some copies in the deck because it's just a really good card to have. When you use it, you can accelerate your plays, and it's very good. Moving into text, because this is obviously where the deck actually changes a lot, you have to look at a lot of different cards. So starting off, what are some texts? We're going to look at Digimon here. So starting off, I think the big one and the elephant in the room is going to be Shine Greymon Ruin Mode. Now, Shine Greymon Ruin Mode is here specifically because every version of this strategy since Shine Greymon Ruin Mode's release in EX4 has found a way to use this card because it just is a good top end, but it also allows the deck to do some unfair things while it climbs into this Digimon very quickly, as it allows it to pressure the opponent's side. Additionally, this card can also be switched for Shine Greymon Burst Mode Ace, as that card is also something you can use in this deck because all of your cards are going to be yellow on the top end. So pretty much your Digimon can revolve around cards like that. You are tight on space, so I won't mention too many more Digimon, but these are options that are typically seen and or can be used. Additionally, we look at the tech options because you do get to use a few of them. Because you do run blue Digimon, you're able to use a lot of blue options. The main one you want to see is Kaiser Nail because Kaiser Nail's effect is so powerful, allow you to play out bodies from the source. So with Kazuhamon, this is really good because you can just simply use Kaiser Nail to bring out a Digimon and then use your own effect to bring out another. So you start to see the synergy there. And then Noble Family Arts is a representation of many other effects that can reduce DP and kind of bomb Digimon. The reason Noble Family Arts is here is because it does a lot, because if your opponent has 2 Digimon on the field and you have like 3 or more, you're able to start adding a lot of DP deletion there. So you want to play a card like this because it is a 5 cost or less option, and that's exactly what you're targeting. Additionally, I decided to put all of the search cards in text for a few reasons. The main reason these cards actually are counted as text, as if you haven't picked up from what I was saying with the other Sakuyamon cards, you have a lot of ways to reduce 2 cost options or higher, and if you happen to realize it, the scramble and physical trainings are both 2 cost options, and yellow memory boost is 3, but you start to realize what I'm saying. You get to reduce it to effectively 1 cost for the memory boost and 0 for scramble and physical training. So these are important cards. You're going to need them for the upcoming BT19 support when it's released, but more importantly, you get to use these cards generically in your deck because everything is yellow, so you're able to search it all, but it also just good consistency, and your archetype can search these cards, which is something extremely rare compared to everything else in the game. You can't usually just add cards unless it's like training into training. Your Digimon can actually search out all these cards, and it's definitely worth it. Now we're going to be moving into the combo portion of the video, so bear with me there. Let's look at specifically the first one I have here. So we're going to be talking about what you can do with a standard combo line, like what are you trying to aim for in this deck. So obviously we're going to start off by having a certain amount of cards. So a setup like this is pretty typical. So you want to have your memory setting Rika online because having 3 memory allows you to do everything you need in the deck roughly. But this is going to show you how quickly you can climb in and establish a board. So you can change out some of the Digimon if you want to, but there's a reason we have some of them here, like the EX2 or the BT or the EX4 Renamon in sources, because you gain a memory back. Like I said, EX2 Viximon will allow you to gain a card when you use one, so you draw. And then additionally, the other cards are here. This is pretty much a setup for right now. So this is a combo you can do right now, but you can also do it post EX8. So that's kind of the key thing here. Moving in, what you're going to want to do with this combo for the setup is Digivolve any of your level 4s into the BT17 Taumon. The BT17 Taumon will allow you to go ahead and use a plugin option. You'll use the high speed plugin S. So effectively, you would Digivolve you'd go ahead and use the effect to use the plugin. Then you'd actually have a trigger effect here where you get to draw from the Viximon and also gain a memory from the Renamon. So you'll gain a memory, so you'll be at 1, not 0. And effectively what you're going to do from here is to proceed with the normal play. You'll go ahead and Digivolve using the high speed plugin S to go straight into the level 6. You would prefer Kazuhamon because it'll allow you to do more, as when you use Kazuhamon and Digivolve into her, you'll now be able to trigger her effect. You'll use whatever option you have in hand. For instance, this is a physical training. You'll now look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Additionally, when you use the option, you'll then trigger Kazuhamon's effect and go ahead and play out any of your bodies from the sources. It could be your Talmons if you want, but for this combo, we'll just play out Yokumon. And the reason why you play Yokumon out is that Yokumon now will get blocker, so you can put blocker on your Kazuhamon, or you can keep blocker on the Yokumon, and now you have a setup there. So when you're looking at it, you're probably thinking, well, this doesn't seem a lot. You have to keep in mind, you've now effectively drawn 1 card from your evolution of the Talmon. You drew 1 card from the effect of the Viximon. You drew 1 card off of High Speed Plugin S, and you've also drawn a card off of the Kazuhamon's evolution. So effectively, you've drawn 4 cards. Yes, you spent different cards from your hand, but the point is you filtered in 4. You've also been able to play out another body from your sources, and you now have access to blocker. Additionally, you had the training set up, so you would have added a card from your deck to your hand, and you start to see how good this deck is. You could repeat the same combo with the same setup, as this is the main goal of this deck. You want to mass combos, and it also shows how good Kazuhamon is for the deck, because without the Kazuhamon in the deck changes a lot, so you do have to keep that in mind. Showing you a little bit of an advantage if you change how the combo is a bit. This is a separate combo technically, but I want to show you if you change the setup just a little bit from the cards you play. So the combo line setup is exactly the same. However, what you've added here is Ruin Mode, and this is important with another yellow option, and specifically the yellow Scramble. So I wanted to show what happens when you do the setup. So you'll do the same play, but what happens is the board changes to this. So you would end up doing something like this, where you'd go ahead, Digivolve, do the same combo, go into Kazuhamon, but when you go ahead and use the Scramble's here so it can reduce the evolution for the Ruin Mode. So effectively what you would do is you use the Scramble, reduce it by 3, and you go into Ruin Mode for 2. So you would have passed your memory over, because Ruin Mode is a 6-cost evolution or 5-cost evolution, I believe. So you're reducing that evolution condition as well. So you would be paying for 3, and you go ahead and simply pay it, and then your opponent's at 2. The reason this is important is that you go ahead and Ruin Mode for 5k. Now your opponent gets to make the choice the next turn, because if they get set to 2 and they have a memory setter, they'll go to 3, so they didn't really gain much. So you're not over giving them memory, but more importantly, if they try to kill Ruin Mode, that it'll happen. Ruin Mode will use its effect to floodgate them. So you're at a good position here, and pretty much this is how you establish Ruin Mode currently if you want to do it through the use of the Scrambles. But combo 3 is one that shows you what happens when you do not have Kazuhamon in the deck, and it shows you what you can do. So starting off, what is the setup different when you're not playing Kazuhamon? Well, there's a few things that are different. Starting off, you want to play more consistency pieces, because you really don't want your bodies to die, because you're not going to be having the same spam ability you would if you had Kazuhamon. So what you're going to do instead here is show you how you can tower up and try to get your deck rolling. So what we have here is the same setup. Instead, we have some more advantageous positions. So we have the BT17 Sakuyamon. This one is important because it is probably the best one when you're playing a budget version of the deck, because it protects itself technically, so your opponent can't get rid of it as easy, but the same setup will apply. You'll go ahead and start your turn by Digivolving. You'll go into the Talmon again. The Talmon will use the high speed plugin S, but then you'll trigger Renamon's effect to gain a memory, so you go back to 1, and you're still in the races here. You'll then trigger the ability to go ahead and Digivolve again with high speed plugin S, and then you're going to be seeing going into the Sakuyamon, and Sakuyamon's effect will be important because if your opponent has a Digimon, you will subtract minus 6,000 DP on one of them, and then you'll activate a yellow option in your hand. You'll go ahead and use that or a plugin. So here you'll use a physical training, for instance, draw 2. Look at the top 2. The main thing I want to talk about with this Sakuyamon is that now it has protection because you would have used an option, so it can't be returned to the deck or hand by your opponent until the end of the next turn. But the reason this is huge is that For this deck, you really want to protect the castle when you're on the budget version. So in order to maximize this, you're basically setting up. So some of the cards in your hand can be, because you do have aces, you want to run aces in this version. You want to run the maid mode ace, where now your opponent may not be expecting you to blast Digivolve because they think they can just run over the Sakuyamon. This one will reduce the DP. So because of how good Sakuyamon is, this will actually allow it to kind of do another unfair thing where your opponent might not be expecting it. You place an option in your security, and then next thing you know, your opponent is getting minus 6,000. So there's a good chance it'll be under the threshold of the DP of maid mode ace, and the maid mode ace will basically kill it in battle or vice versa. So that's important to keep in mind. Additionally, what you can do as another option if you're playing budget is play Shine Greymon Burst Mode Ace. I talked about this before, but the reason you play this one is it allows you to play your Rikas for free, but it's also a very good aggression tool in the budget version of the deck, because when you blast Digivolve into this or Digivolve into it, you play out a Tamer, but it gets security attack +1, and it allows you to just do more damage because this deck doesn't have a lot of good ways to do multiple security checks. So by giving you that option, this card is absolutely powerful, and you can just throw it into the deck to give it some more synergy and allow it to be more aggressive. But let's be honest, you're here for the final combo, and this is the one with Talmon Ace, because this is going to be a bread and butter combo for post Special Booster 2.5. So let's talk about Talmon Ace, because this card will monopolize the deck, but also it does change up the format, because as long as Ruin Mode exists, this card will be something that people will think about. So starting off with the combo, we have a few interesting cards we need to talk about, because what's going to happen is that now the deck switches to more of a resource and supply style of deck. And what I mean is you need to get your pieces in line, and also we'll show you how powerful the card can be when we do have no memory at all, which is kind of crazy. But the point is this deck can function with absolutely having no memory and find a way to pull itself up because of how good Talmon Ace is. So starting off, what are we doing? So you'll play out Talmon Ace. This is something you're going to see, which is crazy if you have the pieces. So people will just go ahead and give you the 5 memory. They don't care. What's going to happen here is that you're going to pay the 5 memory, and you trigger the Talmon's Efface, where you're going to, the effect, we're going to go ahead and use the high-speed plugin S here. This is the first thing you want to do so that you can Digivolve next into your Kazuhamon. Kazuhamon next will proceed in using her effect. You're going to use an option. Now, the key thing here is you want to make sure you use a non-evolution option. So don't use the scramble, because if you do that and have to Digivolve, you will not get the secondary effect of the Kazuhamon. It needs to be face up to have the option used in order to use its playing effect. So you need to keep that in mind. Then you're going to go ahead, and since you've used a non-evolution option, you're going to use the training or whatever, the memory boost. Go ahead and trigger that effect, and then you'll be able to trigger the Kazuhamon's effect to play out Talmon Ace again. You then want to proceed to use the Talmon Ace's effect one more time, because you can, to go ahead and use either a scramble or another option. But what you want to do here, since you have Ruin Mode, is go ahead and use the yellow scramble on the Kazuhamon, and then trigger the reduction and Digivolve into Ruin Mode for only 2 cost. So for 7 cost, you've now had your Ace established on the board, which has gone through 3 different evolutions technically, in that you're able to cycle that, have Ruin Mode online immediately, and you have scramble and the physical training or memory boost, whatever it is, in the back. So that's how that combo functions. I wanted to bring this combo up, but make sure it's the last thing you see in terms of the combos, because this is going to be the bread and butter combo for a lot of the decks that play this engine or play this version of the deck. They want to do this specific combo over and over, because this is where the power is. You now have Ruin Mode online, and you have access to Talmon Ace, and pretty much Talmon Ace has set up the entire field by itself for 5 cost. Like I said, for 7 cost, you got all the way to a level 7, and you still have a level 5 on field. So if you have a level 6 that can blast Digivolve, you know, if you catch my drift, this is going to be pretty impressive. But pretty much this is what it does. We're going to be talking about the remaining options you can use, no pun intended, for this deck. So starting off, what do we have as well? If you're playing a more budget version of this deck, I will tell you what you should include is the Renamon X. You should also be including X Antibody Sakuyamon. This is what will probably get you through a lot of the difficulties of not having Kazuhamon, because they allow you to get more bodies, but additionally add back your plugins. So you can try to filter a little bit easier and then add them back. Additionally, Burst Mode Ace is a mandatory, I think, if you're playing budget, because besides it and the Maid Mode Ace, you don't have a lot of power behind your cards. You're not playing Ruin Mode, so you're not really able to give that big old debuff, and you're not able to play Kazuhamon, so you're not going wide. So you really have to make the cards you play in your deck count, and this is the best way to do it with these really strong cards. Talking about what happens when we get the stuff from 2.5, the main thing you want to talk about is that for budget decks or any decks, the inclusion of the new Cubimon and the inclusion of the new Sakuyamon will be absolutely monumental. The main reason is that with Sakuyamon and Sakuyamon X, you'll now have access to playing 2 different tokens. You'll get a blocker and a rusher. Additionally, with the new Cubimon, as long as you have 2 or less Rikas, you'll just be able to play out Rika constantly. So you're not going to be able losing in the Tamer war anymore. So you don't have to just spend turns playing hard Tamers. Additionally, here is a budget deck list or a smaller deck list of what you can do post EX8. Pretty much, this is me just showing you kind of the ratios. This has been a basic breakdown of Sakuyamon, and I really do hope that you guys liked it. This has been a fun deck to go over, and I do hope that you guys will be enjoying it post EX8 as well as Special Booster 2.5 format, which will be coming far quicker than you think. But as always, this has been Brad from the Ad Army signing off, and for all of you out there, to sign on.